New York City, the city that never sleeps, a metropolis of steel and motion, where millions commute above and below the surface every day. But beneath the honks, the chatter, and the foot traffic lies a hidden world, a world of forgotten tracks, unused platforms, and abandoned tunnels. It's here, in the quiet echo of the underground, that legends whisper. One such legend began circulating in the 1980s, but its roots stretch much further back. It involves an unfinished subway line, a derailed construction plan, and a mysterious train that, according to dozens of eyewitness accounts, appears in the middle of the night, then disappears without a trace. They call it the ghost train of the Lincoln Tunnel. The Lincoln Tunnel, stretching beneath the Hudson River, is known today as one of the most congested vehicle passages in the world. But few know that it once had a companion project, a tunnel bored not just for cars, but for a high-speed commuter train connecting New Jersey to Manhattan. Construction began in the 1930s, halted mid-century, and was quietly scrapped by the 1960s. And yet, the train never stopped. Reports began to surface in 1981. Maintenance crews claimed to hear train horns echoing through sealed walls. Subway workers swore they saw a 6-car train gliding through pitch-black corridors where no track should be active. In one case, a transit cop was hospitalized for shock, claiming a train passed within inches of him in a sealed-off section near 38th Street. City officials denied everything. Urban myth, they called it, residual noise, but leaked memos from within the MTA suggested otherwise. Maintenance logs listed phantom activity at least 14 times in the decade between 1982 and 1992. Unexplained sensor triggers, electrical surges, temperature drops. A retired engineer, Albert Reyes, came forward in 1998 with documents he claimed showed an unreported derailment during the early stages of tunnel excavation in 1943. According to him, a prototype train was tested without proper clearance and vanished after entering a sealed spur line beneath the Hudson. The wreck and its passengers were never recovered. Could it be a cover-up, a tragedy buried beneath bureaucracy, or something far more inexplicable? The first widely reported disappearance connected to the so-called ghost train occurred on April 12, 1983. Gregory Yates, a 28-year-old MTA apprentice, was assigned a night inspection route near a long-abandoned maintenance tunnel beneath 39th Street. He radioed in at 2:14 a.m. to confirm his position. His tone, according to dispatch logs, was calm. Less than 6 minutes later, his flashlight was found lying on the tracks. His clipboard was nearby. But Gregory was gone. Despite exhaustive searches, not a single trace was ever recovered. Surveillance cameras facing nearby entrances showed no signs of escape or exit. Emergency exits were sealed. And no trains, officially, ran through that corridor. The MTA ruled it a runaway case, suggesting he had simply walked away from his job. His family never believed it. In 1985, a second incident occurred. A transit historian named Evelyn Shaw had been documenting forgotten stations across the New York Underground. She'd become fascinated with what she called ghost platforms, stations built but never opened to the public. On May 4th, Evelyn entered a decommissioned access tunnel near the Lincoln Tunnel Ventilation Building. She brought a tape recorder. What she captured was chilling. That was her last recording. Evelyn's body was found 3 weeks later, washed up along the banks of the East River. Her official cause of death was drowning, but how she traveled miles underground without access remains unexplained. Whispers turned into urban legend. Newspapers began running tongue-in-cheek headlines. Ghost commutes into Midtown. Phantom train tolls after midnight. But those close to the story weren't laughing. Albert Reyes, the retired engineer, insisted that Evelyn and Gregory had fallen victim to something the public wasn't meant to see. In a sworn statement made in 2001, he referenced old construction records showing that part of the Lincoln Tunnel project extended much deeper than originally disclosed. According to Reyes, a lower tunnel chamber, intended as an experimental high-pressure vacuum rail system, was abandoned following a collapse in 1943. A full work crew, he claimed, had never emerged. If that's true, what happened to those men? And could a prototype train, sealed and forgotten, somehow still be moving beneath the city? In the summer of 2003, an urban explorer named Joel Ramirez made headlines after sneaking into a restricted subway access point near the Port Authority bus terminal. Joel wasn't a thrill seeker. He was an archivist at heart, part of a growing online community obsessed with uncovering New York's forgotten infrastructure. He wasn't expecting to find anything groundbreaking that night. But what he did find changed the conversation. Inside a sealed equipment room, behind a collapsed locker shelf, Joel discovered an old metal tube labeled TTX 43 Sub 2. Inside were blueprints, yellowed, fragile, and clearly original. They depicted a detailed schematic of an alternate tunnel network beneath the Hudson. This was not the known Lincoln Tunnel layout. This was deeper. The maps showed curved, reinforced passages connecting to what was marked only as Test Track X. One section terminated in a symbol Joel didn't recognize, a circular glyph with intersecting arrows. Beneath it, a stamped word, redacted. Joel posted scans of the maps online. They spread quickly among conspiracy forums, rail enthusiast circles, and eventually investigative reporters. Within weeks, his apartment was reportedly broken into. His original blueprints were gone, and within a month, Joel himself disappeared. Officially, he'd moved west. That's what his landlord told journalists. But his friends insisted he'd left behind his wallet, his hard drives, and his dog. Nothing about his departure made sense. The only surviving copies of the blueprints were screenshots, grainy and partial, but enough to ignite new theories. What if the ghost train wasn't a legend, but a runaway experiment? A military-backed prototype lost in the dark. Some suggested it was never meant for passengers, but for materials, data, or worse. And if the government did know, could it explain why entire sections of MTA blueprints, dating back to the 1940s, are still classified today? In a city built on layers of secrets, maybe the scariest part of this mystery isn't the train itself, but how far some will go to keep it buried. Some say legends are just stories repeated enough to be believed. But what happens when the people telling those stories are professionals? People trained to observe, document, and remain rational under pressure? Between 2007 and 2017, a total of 19 MTA employees anonymously reported unexplained encounters in sections of tunnel maintenance zones near the Lincoln Tunnel corridor, areas technically listed as dormant, sealed, or permanently decommissioned. One of them, a retired maintenance supervisor identified only as RM in a 2019 podcast interview, recalled an incident in 2011. He was conducting a solo inspection after a power disruption when he claims he heard rhythmic clanking, not echoes, something mechanical and deliberate. I turned my headlamp toward the noise and saw light. Not mine. It came from down the tunnel, a headlight. But it wasn't right. It didn't move like a normal engine. It hovered. It passed within 20 feet of me, totally silent, then vanished into a wall that doesn't go anywhere. Another report came from a communications technician assigned to monitor emergency phone boxes. On a late October night in 2014, he received a garbled call through a line that had been out of service for years. I couldn't make out the words clearly. It sounded like metal dragging, a voice whispering coordinates. Then a single phrase repeated twice. They never stopped it. When the MTA reviewed the log, they confirmed the call had been recorded. But within days, that recording was lost due to what was described as a, quote, server malfunction. It's not just city workers, paranormal researchers, sound engineers, even urban spelunkers with GoPros have tried to capture the phenomenon. What they find is always the same: audio glitches, magnetic interference, And that same distant screech, the telltale howl of iron on old rails. Even when there are no rails to be found. And then there are the voices, low, repeating numbers, street names, names of people. Some say the recordings are the voices of the original crew, lost during that fateful test in 1943. Others believe they're echoes, remnants of something that never belonged in this world in the first place. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem to want to be found. But it's still riding. Every train that ever ran through the New York transit system had one thing in common: a manifest, a document logging routes, times, and most importantly, passengers. In 2016, an anonymous former clerk for the Port Authority leaked a strange document to an investigative blogger. The paper, water-stained and dated November 11, 1943, was labeled Test Manifest, Train 601X. It listed 6 engineers, 3 observers, and 2 civilian guests. No destinations, no equipment numbers, just names. What made it even stranger was what wasn't there. The bottom of the page was ripped, the signature space torn away, and scrawled across the margin in red pencil: "Do not process, incomplete clearance." Researchers compared the names with city employee records. 3 of the engineers were never found in any public database. No birth certificates, no social security numbers, no employment history. Ghosts on paper. But 2 names did match. One was Alfred Shore, a rail systems inspector. His personnel file ends on November 12, 1943, the day after the test manifest was dated. His file was marked, presumed retired, no forwarding address. The other, Evelyn Shaw, the same name as the historian found dead decades later. Same middle initial, same birth year. Coincidence? Possibly. But in mysteries like these, coincidence often wears a mask. What if that manifest wasn't unfinished, but never meant to be finished? Some believe Train 601X was an unauthorized test of experimental transport tech, a vehicle capable of reaching high speeds in vacuum-sealed tunnels. Others suggest it was designed for something more clandestine, a Cold War-era mobile bunker hidden beneath a thriving city. Whatever its purpose, it's possible it never left those tunnels, that it's still riding, trapped in some forgotten loop, echoing through miles of concrete. Each time the ghost train is seen, its cars are described the same way: steel-plated, windowless, and silent. And in each sighting, passengers are never visible, except once. A worker who glimpsed the train in 1995 described a single figure staring out through a narrow slit in the door. His eyes, he said, were glowing red, like brake lights, but human. There was no follow-up interview. The worker quit 3 days later and moved to upstate New York. Today, the Lincoln Tunnel hums with daily life. Hundreds of thousands of vehicles pass through its chambers every week. Honking horns, blinking brake lights, the pulse of modern commuting. But beneath that surface, the layers of asphalt and concrete still lie the untouched corridors, sealed shafts, places no maintenance crews are assigned, places no one talks about. The city insists the stories are just that, stories. No ghost trains, no secret tunnels, no missing workers. But if you speak with longtime MTA staff, many will lower their voices before admitting they've heard things, seen shadows, felt something unnatural shift the air. In 2022, a freelance investigative team used ground-penetrating radar in areas surrounding the original construction zone. What they found was baffling: anomalies consistent with sealed chambers, large enough to fit a subway car, but they were under private property now, inaccessible. City records? Incomplete. Requests for access? Denied. And so the story continues, rumbling underfoot, just beyond the reach of fact. The ghost train of the Lincoln Tunnel may never be officially acknowledged, but its imprint remains. not just in legend, but in physical echoes, temperature shifts, metal-on-metal sounds where no rails lie, and the persistent feeling that somewhere deep below the city, something is still moving. And maybe, just maybe, it always will. Thank you for joining us for The Ghost Train of Lincoln Tunnel, a New York mystery. If you found this story compelling, haunting, or thought-provoking, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support keeps these unsolved stories alive and helps shine a light on the forgotten corners of history. We'll be back soon with another tale that defies explanation. Until then, keep watching and listening.